Before we begin, we are a small channel on the path to 1,000 subscribers. If this kind of content interests you, subscribe now. It takes 1 second and makes a real difference. Now let's go. Close your eyes. You stand before a door that has not been opened in 400 years. A door set into stone so thick that no sound passes through it in either direction. We are in the late 15th century, Central Europe. A market town of perhaps 3,000 souls. Weavers, tanners, priests, midwives. Narrow streets of packed earth. A church tower visible from every corner. And somewhere inside this ordinary place, a cell. Forget what you imagined. There were no cackles in the night. No women dancing at crossroads beneath a full moon. That was not what brought people here. What brought people here was a bad harvest. A sick child. A neighbor's word. The woman who occupies this story has no name yet. She is known, for now, only by what others have called her, a healer, a herbalist, a woman who knew too much and spoke too freely. She has lived in this town her entire life. Do you smell the straw on the floor? Wet, beginning to rot? Can you hear the drip of water somewhere in the dark, steady as a heartbeat? And when you press your hand against the wall, do you feel the cold that does not belong to any season? The cold that lives in stone regardless of what the sun does outside? Today we go in. Before we go further, let me show you how we know this. The procedures described here are drawn primarily from the Malleus Maleficarum, published in 1487 by Heinrich Kramer, a Dominican inquisitor whose manual for identifying and prosecuting witches became the legal and theological backbone of persecution across Europe. We cross-reference this with the trial records compiled by historian Brian Levack in The Witch Hunt in Early Modern Europe, and with the meticulous archival work of Wolfgang Behringer, whose excavation of German regional court documents gives us the specific mechanics of interrogation that most history books skip entirely. What those sources reveal is not a story of superstition alone. It is a story of procedure, of bureaucracy, of men following rules. Now, back to the cell. It is early morning, though she cannot see it. Dawn has come to the town above her. Bakers are lighting ovens. A dog is barking somewhere near the market square. None of that reaches her. She has been here for 3 days. This is not unusual. The first stage of what the court calls examination involves waiting. Disorientation. The body begins to do the inquisitor's work for him. Hunger tightens the stomach. Cold stiffens the joints. Darkness plays tricks on the eyes that have no light to anchor them. Look at her hands. She is perhaps 40 years old. Her hands are the hands of a woman who has worked. Knuckles swollen, skin roughened from years of grinding herbs, carrying water, kneading bread. Those hands have delivered babies in this town. Those hands have pressed compresses of plantain and yarrow against fevers. 3 of the alderman's children are alive today, in part, because of those hands. She does not yet understand that none of this will matter. The Malleus is explicit on this point. The reputation of the accused is relevant only insofar as it can be reinterpreted. Kindness becomes manipulation. Knowledge becomes a pact with unseen forces. The more respected the woman, the more carefully the devil must have concealed himself within her good works. When she later stands before the court and lists every remedy she has ever offered, every life she has ever aided, that was not a defense. It was, in the court's reading, a confession of the breadth of her deception. Mid-morning. The door opens. 2 men enter. One carries a document. The other carries nothing visible. The one with the document reads from it in Latin. She understands perhaps 1 word in 10. He is reading the accusations. A neighbor's cow died after a dispute over a fence. A child developed a fever the week after she walked past the house. A woman in her street claims to have seen her, past midnight, speaking to something that cast no shadow. She wants to laugh or cry. She is not certain which. The smell in the room has changed. The men have brought a candle, and with it comes the scent of tallow, animal fat, something almost domestic. It makes the wrongness sharper. This should be a kitchen, a workshop, not this. The questioning is methodical. How long have you known the devil? When did you first receive his mark? Who were the others at the Sabbath? The questions do not ask whether, they ask when and who. This is the architecture of the system, and it is important to understand it clearly. The Malleus instructs examiners to phrase all questions as though guilt is already established. The accused is not invited to explain. She's invited to fill in the details of a story already written. Imagine sitting in a chair and being asked, not did you steal the bread, but how many loaves did you take, and where did you hide them? The psychological pressure of that construction is not small. It tells you that denial is not a door that opens. She denies everything. This too is expected. The Malleus calls it the devil's stubbornness working through her. Denial is not evidence of innocence. It is evidence that the interrogation must continue. There is a word the documents use with great frequency, territio. It means, approximately, the application of fear or pain to produce confession. It is divided, in the court's careful Latin, into territio verbalis, the threat, and territio realis, the act itself. Both are prescribed, both are documented. Both leave paper trails in the archives of towns that no longer remember they did this. Step back for a moment. Look at this room. A stone chamber, perhaps 4 meters by 3. A small barred opening high in one wall that lets in a gray column of light on clear days. An iron ring set into the wall at shoulder height. The strapado was the most common instrument of territio realis in these proceedings. The accused's hands were bound behind their back, the rope run through the ring or over a ceiling beam, and the body lifted. Sometimes only to the point of shoulder strain, sometimes higher, sometimes with weights attached to the feet. The pain was precise, functional, and entirely unremarkable to the men administering it. They had forms to fill out afterward, describing what had been applied, at what stage, and what response had been obtained. She holds out longer than many. This is documented in cases like hers. Older women, women with some standing, sometimes resist the first application. The inquisitors note this without admiration. It is simply data. The procedure continues. The sounds in this room, listen for them. Not screaming. Screaming comes and goes. What persists is the creak of the rope under weight, the shallow breathing of men waiting for a particular word, the scratch of a quill on parchment when that word finally comes. She confesses. Of course she confesses. Understand what confession means here. It does not mean she believes what she is saying. It does not mean she has surrendered her sense of reality. It means the body has reached a point beyond which it cannot negotiate with itself any further. And the mind makes a calculation that is not irrational. If I say the words they want, the pain will stop. The confession is detailed because the examiner supplies the details. He asks, "Was it on a Thursday that you met him?" She says yes. "Was he dressed in black?" Yes. "Were there 6 others with you or more?" More. The document that results reads as vivid testimony. Historians centuries later would cite the psychological consistency of these accounts as evidence that something real had been experienced. What had been experienced was the human mind, under sufficient duress, assembling whatever framework is offered to it. She names names. She does not want to. But the question is asked the same way. Who else was there? Not was anyone else there. The examiner reads 3 names. She is asked to confirm. She confirms. 3 other women in this town have now been implicated in a confession she did not write. When those 3 women are arrested in the weeks that follow, when the knock comes at their doors before dawn, when the hands reach for their arms in the market, in the churchyard, in the doorway of the house where they have lived for 30 years, that moment was not born from malice alone. It was born from a procedure, from a question phrased a particular way, from a woman in unbearable pain trying to make it stop. The trial is brief. By the time she appears before the full court, the confession already exists. It has been read by the judges. It has been confirmed, under additional questioning, the documents note, by the accused herself. There is a form for this. The ratification of confession, conducted according to procedure, at least 1 day after the last application of territio, in a separate room, in the presence of a notary. She is asked if she stands by her words. She has been told, explicitly, that recantation will be treated as relapse, that a woman who confesses and then withdraws her confession has proved herself twice over in the devil's service, and the penalty for relapse is without appeal. She stands by her words. The smell of the courtroom is different from the cell. Wood, candle wax, damp wool from the coats of the men assembled. There are perhaps 12 of them. Some she recognizes. The alderman whose children she helped deliver sits in the second row. He does not look at her. The sentence is death by fire. The court records note that this is an act of mercy. Burning, in the theology of the period, purifies. It offers the soul a final opportunity for cleansing. The document uses the Latin phrase ad maiorem Dei gloriam, for the greater glory of God. Step back. Look at everything we have seen. A woman. A town. A document called the Malleus Maleficarum that told men exactly how to find what they were looking for. A procedure so well constructed that it was nearly impossible to enter and survive. An architecture of guilt that had no exits. Somewhere between 40,000 and 60,000 people were executed for witchcraft in Europe between 1450 and 1750, according to Levack's most conservative estimates. The majority were women. The majority were tried in communities where they were known, by people they had served. The woman in this cell is not exceptional. She is representative. And here is what we must hold. She was afraid. Not of the devil. Not of her accusers in any abstract sense. She was afraid the way you are afraid when you are cold and alone and cannot see the door and have not eaten and do not understand what rule you can follow to make this stop. She was afraid the way every human body is afraid when it has run out of options. When the Malleus Maleficarum was reprinted 14 times in the 2 decades after its publication, that was not a sign of superstition overwhelming reason. It was reason applied to the wrong framework. It was intelligent men, organized men, systematic men, building a machine that consumed people. The horror is not that they were irrational. The horror is that they were not. The woman in the cell had a face. She had preferences. Perhaps she preferred the smell of lavender to rosemary. Perhaps she had a particular way of singing under her breath when she worked. She had once been a child who ran between market stalls without any knowledge of what the word witch would one day do to her life. All of that was ordinary. All of that was human. And the machine was indifferent to all of it. We look back at this, and we call it another time. Another place. But the mechanism, the named accusation, the predetermined guilt, the confession extracted by pressure, the community that watches and turns away, that mechanism is not medieval. It is human. It is available whenever the conditions are met. That is not a comfortable thing to sit with. It is not meant to be. If this video gave you something real to think about, not entertainment, but something that stayed with you, then help us reach more people. We are a small channel on the path to 1,000 subscribers, and every subscription counts. Click subscribe now. It takes only a second. And before you go, leave a comment. What surprised you most? The bureaucratic precision of the trials? The role of forced confession in naming new victims? Or the detail that denial itself was treated as proof of guilt? Write it in the comments. It takes only 15 seconds and helps this video reach more people. Thank you for staying until the end. Until next time.